Hello everyone, you've probably already watched the first boss tactics video. I hope I'm doing okay, so let's roll on to boss 2, which is Feng the Accursed. Right, the beginning of the video I'm going to go into the tanks first, because the things I'm going to say to the tanks they have to remember during the whole fight, which is kind of annoying for them for me to say the fight and what happens and then explain it to them. So, tanks, pay attention. Right, at the beginning of the fight, one tank's going to get one crystal, and another tank's going to get another crystal. Depending on the crystal, depends on what you need to do. So, if you get the crystal, get one crystal, and it gives you Nullifying Barrier, you are tank A. Nullifying Barrier is a move that you get, and it will make a barrier for 6 seconds, which will protect you from magic and debuffs. The problem with that is, bear in mind, it will also protect the boss from magic and debuffs. So it's a key thing to know when to use it near and not near the boss, which you'll find out later. The next tank, which is tank B, will get Shroud of Reversal. And this is a move where you will place this on another raid member, and then you will gain the ability of the next damaging attack that causes them damage. There you are. So Shroud of Reversal will give you the ability that damages that person next. You will see how this works during the fight in the moment. So remember your abilities for the whole fight. And also, just to add a bit more complication for you tanks, there is a traditional 2-stack change. So when you get 2 stacks of the debuff, which you'll see, you will have to taunt. The other tank will taunt, so it's a 2-stack switch. There you are. So bear all that in mind. So I'm going to go into the tactics now. So with Feng the Accursed, he has 3 phases that start at 95%. The first 5% is a tank and spank, normal. Then from 95 to 66%, he has 2 abilities. Now, just keep in mind with this boss, every phase he has 2 new abilities we have to deal with. So, note from this one, I'm going to go through the 2 abilities and what we do, and then when the percentage changes to the next phase, they will be gone. And then we'll have 2 new abilities to deal with. Okay? Right, well, on the first phase, there's 2 abilities, Epicenter and Lightning Fist. Epicenter is an AoE surrounding the boss, which causes damage to players and reduces their hit by 75%. And the damage is higher the closer you are to the boss. So what you need to do is you make sure that you're not near the boss. You should be fine. Well, I'll explain how we deal with them, but that's the ability. The next ability is Lightning Fist, which is a frontal cone, damage and stun. And how we deal with these is that the tank B, who has the Shroud of Reversal, will cast that on tank A, who will be tanking, because he'll be tanking first. He will be hit by Lightning Fist, which is of course a frontal cone and a stun. Tank B will then gain that ability and use that ability to interrupt Epicenter, so that we don't have to deal with it. Now, of course, this is something we're going to have to learn, and I don't know if we can guarantee interrupt Epicenter every time. If we do not interrupt Epicenter, there will be an X placed by the raid leader in the room. We will group up on that X, everyone, because while he's doing Epicenter, it's a channeling effect and he won't attack us. And if tank A has Nullifying Barrier, we will have that, which will mean we don't take as much damage. Now, Nullifying Barrier is a 1-minute cooldown, so we might not always be able to have that when Epicenter happens if it's not interrupted. So we will have to use our healing cooldowns and our cooldowns to avoid the damage. So that's the best way we can deal with it. Once we get to 66%, we will change phase to phase 2. In this phase, we'll get 2 more abilities. Now, one of the abilities is Wildfire Spark, and this will place a debuff on the target, which will place a fire patch on the floor after 5 seconds, which moves. And you want to avoid these and run away from them, because these, when you touch them, will multiply, like Yogg-Saron's clouds. They moved and multiplied. Not good. So that's one ability, and then the next ability is Draw Flame. This is when the boss sucks up all the flame patches that have been put on the ground during that time, and that will give him a stack. Now this stack will make his melee swings do fire AoE damage, so phase 2 is a high damage phase, so the healers have to be on target, on the ball. So what you want to make sure is, one, when he's sucking in the fire, you do not want to be hit by the fire. You want to make sure none's behind you. How we're going to solve that is, if you get the debuff, you've got 5 seconds before it drops the fire. So we're going to designate a side of the room, which is the opposite side to where we're tanking the boss, to drop all the fires, which means that we won't have to worry then when he sucks them all in. Now there will be quite a few patches of fire, so he will gain a lot of stacks. So we need to accept that he's going to, after the first Draw Flame, he's going to be hitting us with fire AoE damage as well as swinging. So we will have to deal with the high damage. Now on the last Draw Flame, which we will have to judge. Now the raid leader will use heroism to either push into the next phase or push into the last Draw Flame. So you need to listen to the raid leader for the call of hero. And then you need to also listen out for when it is the last Draw Flame, so you know what to do. Now tank A with Nullifying Barrier, when it's on the last Draw Flame and is sucking in the fire patches, you want to cast Nullifying Barrier and keep it, so that when he's sucking up the fire, he doesn't gain stacks. Which means when we take him into phase 3, he is not hitting us with AoE fire when he's every time he's swinging and causing the raid more damage. So this is going to take a lot of practice. I want to say that on this fight, we are going to have to keep Vent pretty quiet. We're going to have a lot of communication between tank A and B. And you're going to have the raid leader is going to have the space to be able to say when to push DPS and to give assignments of where the flame patches have to go and different stuff like that. So it is going to be a learning curve for the guild. Now once we get to 33%, we hit phase 3. Now phase 3 have 2 more abilities. One is Arcane Velocity. Now this is a channeling AoE damage, which it causes high damage. Now what we want to do in this phase is make sure we're on top of the tank, underneath the boss, which we will still be taking damage, but it will be the least amount of damage we can take. So when he casts this, you want to be underneath the boss. The next ability we can get is Arcane Resonance, and this is a bomb that is placed on any raid member. It is ranged and healers, and it is by spec. So even if a healer is standing in melee range, it can get it, so you don't want that to happen. So when we're not grouping up for Arcane Velocity, we need to be spaced out. And the best thing we can do is to be spaced out around the boss, so it's easy to run into the middle and then run back out again ASAP. The bomb that's placed on a raid member will do pulsing damage every second, and will do damage to anyone in a 6-yard radius of them. So you need to stay away. Now there's 2 points with these abilities. Unfortunately, he can cast Arcane Resonance straight after, or just before an Arcane Velocity, which means there'll be high damage. Now the healers need to keep in mind that we could have a group. Well, I'll show you. We're going to be standing like this. This is just to show everyone. Right. The orange is us in the middle of him, which is where we want to be standing when he does Arcane Velocity. And as you can see, there's a green there, which has to stand outside of the area because they've got Arcane Resonance, or for some reason there's no E there, which is awesome. But you know what I mean. Yeah. So Feng is there, we're underneath him, and this is where you have to stand. What the healers need to bear in mind, as I've said, is that there's going to be a lot of damage flying around. We need to make sure we keep the raid member that's having to stand just outside, taking high damage from Arcane Velocity and Resonance, and then heal our raid up as well. So I do feel that we can use the abilities the tanks have to our advantage, like of course Nullifying Barrier when we have to group up, maybe when there is someone on the outside, and you know, using Shroud of Reversal to gain maybe gain spells, gain the arcane resonance. I'm not sure if you can, but it's just testing out what the tanks can do to help the raid. So there are 2 abilities. You have to make sure you group up quickly and spread out quickly, and it is going to be quite high damage. This is a gear check for us. From looking into it and researching, the DPS need to be about 45k, and the healers need to be dishing it out. So make sure, you know, don't be too disappointed if we don't get it straight away, but we will. So just remember, each phase 2 new abilities. Tanks, remember your abilities. Remember that you have to switch tanking at 2 stacks during the fight, and hopefully we can get this. Thank you.